It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
So yesterday was not unlike the kind of weather that we get in, say, the spring or things like that. More so the spring and then to an extent the fall. But, you know, you get those days where it starts out chilly and, you know, you got a like triple layer, and then by the end of the day it's 80 and sunny, and you're like, man, today was like this morning. That seems totally different than what it felt like or feels like now, and et cetera. Yesterday was a little bit like that. And I don't mean in a weather standpoint. I mean from a standpoint of a couple of things. Started out yesterday, and I want to thank everybody for helping out, being a part of it, participating, listening, and checking in, all of it. With our efforts yesterday and working with the American Red Cross, working with Kroger, working with CBS4, working with WXIN, and simply doing our Help in the Heartland drive and fundraising efforts. It was to get up there to Noblesville to start the day and see, and I appreciate the listeners that came out, everybody that came by. One of our 47 female listeners came by, Eddie.
Now, why do you do CBS4 but WXIN? Why don't you call CBS4 it's by its station letters?
That's what they got. I mean, they say Fox 59, I guess, but I think probably because that's an excellent question.
Not
and
to be like a therapist and trying to tap into the mind of Jake Query.
Well, that's a dangerous place. A very good question. The answer would be, I think the reason why we say CBS4 as opposed to WTTV4 is because WTTV is still in the minds of so many people the brand of when it was the independent television station on Bluff Road that was giving us Cowboy Bob and Janie and Sammy Terry, and then the 10 o'clock news before Channel 6 then kind of took over, and you had Channel 6 simulcasting on it, and eventually it then was bought by the local, you know, Tribune and made it WTTV CBS4. So I think, excellent question, Eddie, but I think the reason I don't say WTTV4 is because that is like, it's almost like that's preserved as a Hoosier that belongs to the heritage of the before, even though it technically is still the same station. It's kind of not. And so it's kind of like saying the Indianapolis Colts as opposed to the Baltimore Colts, even though technically it's all still the same franchise as what it was in Baltimore. Best way that I can say it. Very good question, though. But we began the day yesterday with, you know, it was kind of heavy because I know, and I think you could tell, hopefully you could tell when I was talking that, you know, it's something that I was passionate about in trying to help out, notably in Ravenswood, even though there are areas throughout the entire state in need of help, and hopefully we can help all of those folks. So it started with that, but it was still a fun day because but so many people that came out put faces or voices or stories to what otherwise were just images or discussion. And I want to thank those people for coming out and showing their photos or telling their story of what they've gone through to further cement the importance of what we were trying to do yesterday and to continue that. That's how the day began. The day ended for me. I mean, I had a very busy last evening, but the day ended with, and no spoiler alert here, okay? But the new episode of Ted Lasso, and I realize I'm probably talking to 12% of you that even watch Ted Lasso, but nonetheless, Ted Lasso is like this chicken noodle soup for the soul, right? It is this simplistic, lighthearted, always has the right tone show. It's the Andy Griffith of the 21st century. And I had voiced that through the first, I think we're through, are we episode 4 now? Maybe 3 or 4?
Last night was episode 4.
Okay, so through the first 3 episodes of the new season, it just hasn't stuck with me yet. They haven't hit the landing yet where I'm just like, eh. And it has nothing to do with the fact that the team that he was once coaching is different. It's not that. Some of the different characters that were fun as auxiliary characters, I think they've forced too much to be main characters now. Nonetheless, last night, episode 4, finally was the episode where I'm like, it's back. It's back. The whole, like, now it's coming together. They regrouped. They got everything under control here. They went out at the beginning of the race, and the car was a little bit loose, and they seemed to have the wrong setup for the first 20 laps. And then they just came in for a pit stop, and they're starting stint number 2. And I'm like, you know what? Yes. They made a wing adjustment. They cleared the tear off, and they're good to go. And I thought last night was a great show, and so I thought, what a perfect way to finish what was otherwise a very loaded, packed, and at times heavy day. But thank you to everybody that came out. Now, along with that, from the Colts standpoint and other teams' standpoints, everything is, in fact, this back and forth, this yin and yang, this oscillation between heavy and lighthearted, wonderful, and etc. For the Colts, we will begin with that. There is the lighthearted and the wonderful, which is the preseason. Game number 3 is on the horizon. That means after that, it is only real football, and I mean that is no disrespect to those participating in a preseason game, but you know what I mean. And so now here it is. You're rounding out the form with your roster. You're figuring out where everybody is. You are looking at it, and you can look at the backup quarterback position one of two ways. You can say this is of concern because neither of these guys have jumped up and seized opportunity, or you can look at it and say that's good news because the reality is Daniel Jones is healthy, and if the backup quarterback is the biggest concern on the roster, then you're in pretty good shape. Two ways to look at all of it, right? You could look at it and say the linebacker position is one that they drafted in C.J. Allen, a guy that was going to be kind of the heart and soul and quarterback of their defense, and he got hurt and he hasn't been out there, and now they've gone with Cam Bynum as the guy that's going to be the green dot guy, if you will, and et cetera, and that concerns me. Or you could look at it and say, but the good news is the linebacker is probably the running back of a defense where it's the most fungible position by all account, and it is the position where you can kind of have some guys there that so long as you have great defensive backfield behind them, which I think you do, and you have adequate defensive line in front, which I think at least against the run you do, then you can look at it and say, okay, linebacker's a position that if there's one that you need to let it have time to grow and water, linebacker's it. So there's the good news. Other than the bad news, which is we still don't know who those linebackers are going to be. The good news of the defensive backfield is they have tons of pieces. They have, as I mentioned, Cam Bynum back there. Probably A.J. Holsey is going to be the other one that's back in terms of the safety position. They have an elite-level corner in Sauce Gardner, who's big, who has range, looks to be kind of a Velcro-type corner. He could probably be a shutdown corner. You have Justin Wally at the nickel. That is a guy that they have just been in love with, and they go on and on about him. And then you have Mooney Ward. So you have all of this good in the defensive backfield, and I'm not here by any stretch of the imagination to do the show today with the heavy. I'd like for this show and this day and the start of it to also be the Ted Lasso. The fun, lighthearted, it's delivered, here it is. This is something great. Let's move forward with it. I'd like for it to be that. But we have to discuss things that are of concern. Now, I know that the morning show guys, I would assume, played this a fair amount, but I want to begin today by playing it because I think this is of note. I'm a big believer in precedent. I know I talk about that probably far too much. But there's two kinds and two ways to really understand sports, in my humble opinion. To understand life, for that matter. You know, Ted Lasso, if you've never seen the show, I'm not going to give you any spoiler alert, and I'm not going to give you any information that is going to make you feel left out if you're unfamiliar with it. The brilliance of the show Ted Lasso is that it takes a different aspect of pop culture from our past, and it tributes throughout the course of a show a theme that it doesn't tell you this is about this TV show from 40 years ago. It doesn't tell you this is loosely based on a couple of fun lines from a movie 30 years ago. You just have to figure it out on your own. And that's part of the fun of each episode. The latest episode, a little more obvious because they reference the movie in general. But there are themes throughout the episode itself, several themes throughout the episode, that subtly pay tribute to a movie that it references from 40 years ago. And the more you look at the episode, the more you can figure out with each thing that happens how it relates to the movie or the television show they're referencing from the past. They're learning from and using baseline from something that we've already gone through. I think in sports, a lot of times when you assess a team, especially when a season is beginning, and you don't know yet about that team, we don't know realistically about any team in the NFL right now. We have an idea based on what we've seen. But when you realistically look at, a year ago, Eddie, this time 1 year ago, if you took a survey of national radio sports talk shows or local sports talk shows across the nation, I should say, in Minneapolis, Detroit, Phoenix, Dallas, and Sarasota. And in those, you heard two guys, or a guy and a gal, or two gals, or whatever it may be, talking about the upcoming NFL season. And you had like an algorithm that could listen to and pull out what the most commonly referenced franchises and teams were in forecasting last year's NFL season. Now, give me one of those cities off the top of your head. Phoenix, Sarasota, you just name a city. Minnesota, Boise, name a city.
Pocatello,
thank you. And I believe that what do we call the Pocatello sports show there?
The Pocatello Penitentiary Game of the Week?
Well, we do have that. We do have the game that in the Pocatello Penitentiary they have to watch, and we always know that that's the game every week when they say, good news, fellas, the warden is going to let us watch an NFL game. And it's like, woo! And then they say, it's the Browns and the Jets, right? That's the Pocatello Penitentiary Game of the Week.
Yeah.
But the sports talk show, I can tell you right now, it's Spud and Stud in the morning, right? You're listening to Spud and Stud in the morning. Pocatello's top, the eye on sports and the potato world. Pocatello's ticket 94.7, right? Now, that show, if you had to list the top 12 franchises that were mentioned this time 1 year ago exactly, how often do you think the Seattle Seahawks or the New England Patriots were brought up?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. You don't know going into a season. You have no idea who's going to be this year's holy cow. Look at how May has figured this out and how precise he is as a game manager. And look at Sam Darnold getting this third lease on life and what a difference a defense can make. All of those things. And Seattle got hot at the right time. But what you can look at is precedent. And you can look at different traits about a team and say, within a team itself, I've got to look at where there are indications as to what I've seen in the past. And in the case of Charvarius Ward, there's precedent. There's precedent of Charvarius Ward being injured, and I understand. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form equating having a back stiffness or a back injury to the loss of a child. I mean, that would be that is in a whole different category. And as we know, Charvarius Ward went through that as a father. He lost his young daughter. And that was just before he arrived as a Colt. And he talked about the fact that part of being in Indianapolis was he just needed that fresh start. He needed a new residence, a new address, a change of scenery. Because it's more than just a song from Naked Eyes of always something there to remind me. It is a difficult thing sometimes when you go through emotional and insignificant loss. There's always something to remind you. And so the change of scenery, I understood, and I think everybody did. And he came here and was a really good player. And then, so I'm taking nothing to do with the personal battle that he had there. From a physical standpoint, the concussions that he had, and the fact that he was totally open about last year when he missed, numerous time, consecutive weeks because of a concussion, and was very honest about the fact that that led him to then really analyze whether or not this was something that he wanted to do. Ultimately, as he told me some 3 weeks ago out at Grand Park, ultimately he decided to come back after discussion and consultation from a number of people in his life, many of which he said encouraged him to retire for football. Bro, you've made your money, he told me, is what many of them said to him. But he did talk to one person, his agent, and you can certainly be cynical as I have been about, well, of course his agent wants him to play. But oftentimes agents are more than that. They are very trusted confidants for players. And they are people that give they're almost like career counselors, like your guidance counselor in high school that's followed you into your career path. And it was his agent who said, if you have this in you and you want to play, you need to do what your passion is. And his passion was to play football. But he was open about the fact that his passion was compromised by the mental hurdle and the precedent of knowing what it is to overcome and come back from injury, and the time on the sidelines and all that goes into that. And yesterday, James Boyd, who you hear on this radio station, you just heard him with Kevin on the morning show, asked Charvarius Ward about the latest injury to Ward, which has caused him to miss, again, preseason games, so take it for what it's worth. But he has a back injury. And we all have nicks and bruises. We all have hurdles. We all have obstacles. We all have boo-boos, so to speak. But how long do they linger? How long does it take to work past them? What sort of therapy, stretching, treatment do you get? And his answer to me was one that while I'm looking for this season to enter on a Ted Lasso type feel-good feel, I can't deny the dichotomy of the possibility that there is, in fact, the heavy feel. This is Charvarius Ward yesterday when talking about the process of dealing with his back injury going into this year's season.
Be something I got to deal with, something I got to maintain, something I got to manage. Definitely not going to be fixed overnight or over the next couple of weeks. I just got to maintain it throughout the whole entire season. So I expect to be ready for week 1. Well, I'm 100% positive. Well, I ain't going to say that, but I expect to be ready for week 1 for sure.
I expect to be 100% positive. I'm not going to say that, actually. But it's something that I have to deal with. And the yin and the yang here would be there have been much bigger things that Charvarius Ward has had to deal with. which probably could easily make this feel like, yeah, okay. But there's also plenty that he's had to deal with. And precedent tells you that you can go back and tap into that and say, and it's only he knows whether it's something he does or does not want to go back towards. And I think it's a story to watch. And the good news, I guess, for the Colts, Eddie, would be the fact that this is kind of the one story. I mean, sure, we can sit here and discuss till the cows come home whether or not Riley Leonard's ready to make a step. Alec Pierce is the other big story, clearly, when it comes to the ankle. But for the most part, when your biggest storyline going into camp is a guy that is going to play, but you just want to know whether or not it's at 80% or 100%, that's probably in totality, based on and compared to what we've seen in the past, a good thing. But it is still of some concern, I think, and I really do believe, I hope I'm wrong. But through 4 weeks, Ted Lasso found itself. Through 4 weeks, are we going to still be talking about whether or not Charvarius Ward has answers and definitive ones about his back and whether or not he wants to continue forward? Because I don't think you can rule out that possibility that he just says, yeah, I'm good. But we'll see. Did you do anything fun last night, Eddie?
I had to work the other job yesterday, so no.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about this. You consistently refer to the other job as the other job, right? It's the mistress. It's your employment mistress, right?
Sure.
But how do we know that in reality, that's not your primary and we're not the mistress? When you're at the other job and someone says, what'd you do this afternoon? Do you say, I was at work, or do you say, I was at my other job?
I was at work for my full-time job.
So you consider this your full-time job?
Yes.
The other one's just your moonlighting?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I work in, sports radio, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's cool. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, it is. Thank you.
No, wait. So what you're indicating to me is this. Using your barometer, and this doesn't surprise me. Using your barometer of when people ask you what it is that you do for work, what you have been given indication is that when you're walking around, that there's actually nobody that knows of this radio program, right?
No, there's a couple. There are a couple.
Just a couple?
Yes, there's one guy in a different department that will make reference to the show whenever we work the same shift. Yes.
Okay. Now, is that this other guy's main job? Or is he listening to us while he's at his main job and this is also his mistress? You guys share a mistress together?
He retired and then he started working at the other company that I work for part-time, the other job.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So what you're getting at, okay, is your mistress is his like stay active.
Sure.
Situation.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Fair
Yes.
enough.
Yes. Yes.
Fair enough. There is plenty to talk about beyond just the Colts today. That includes Fever in action coming up tomorrow night. They take on Connecticut. That is at 7:30. Pregame can be heard at 7 o'clock. And, they've had this week. I do think that for the Fever, who are getting set to go into the FIBA break, I think this week has come at a very good time for them because I think that they – yes, sir, Eddie?
This is from Adam Schefter of ESPN. The Colts are activating wide receiver Alec Pierce off the physically unable to perform list.
On the shelf.
Correct.
Okay. So that is the one now.
Actually, this is Mike Chappell who broke the news, not Adam Schefter. Schefter giving credit to Mike Chappell.
Here's the question. And Matt Taylor's going to join us coming up. I'm going to begin in talking to Matt Taylor by asking him the burning question that comes about with this news that Alec Pierce, the wide receiver of the Colts, who, of course, signed a mega extension in the offseason, and then very shortly thereafter had a surgical procedure to, quote, clean up his ankle as well as like the heel of his foot. He has not participated in full practice nor obviously games here in the preseason. And the Colts, of course, as are the rules when a player is on the PUP list on the shelf, if they begin when the final roster is announced on that list, they are then, by NFL rules, required to miss the first 4 games. He has now, with that deadline being on Sunday, been activated and removed from that list. They have plucked him off the shelf. That creates, in my mind, a major question. The last question to be asked about it, but there is a major question about Alec Pierce and this situation, and I will ask that question to Matt Taylor, the voice of the Colts, immediately when he joins us. And all I was going to say about the Fever is in action tomorrow night, then extended time off, but I think from a mental standpoint, while they're playing very well, and you can make the argument that it's hard to put on the brakes with that when you have momentum, I do just think psychologically, from an emotional standpoint, of just all the noise and the drama that was going on with them, that they've kind of seemingly gone towards the end of that tunnel and that hallway. I do think this break is probably, from the conversations I've had, coming at a good time. But Matt Taylor is the voice of the Colts, and he will join us, and I will ask that question about Alec Pierce right off the top next. Hey there, Jet Query for Surfside. Look for the can with the sunset stripes. I love when I'm out and I see somebody that is enjoying a Surfside, buying a Surfside, or when I simply am able to introduce them to Surfside, which at this point I think most people are familiar with it. The iced tea with the splash of vodka, lemonade with the splash of vodka that you can find in restaurants, bars, liquor stores, wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Look for the can with the sunset stripes. The flavors are awesome. The best part about it, it is so smooth. No carbonation, so just incredibly easy. It's literally like liquid velvet. It is so smooth to enjoy. And just 100 calories, 2 grams of sugar. Surfside, look for it wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Please be 21 with Surfside, and please consume responsibly.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Matt Taylor going to join us just a minute from now. Funny that we would play Pearl Jam leading into Matt, because I think of Matt Taylor as kind of more a classic rock guy. And we've had that discussion, but if you were to list, at this point, if you were to list grunge acts, has Pearl Jam surpassed Nirvana as the staple face of the grunge era? You know, I think, Alice in Chains is certainly in there. Stone Temple Pilots, although they're not Seattle per se, but Stone Temple Pilots, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Screaming Trees, I guess, to an extent, would be in the mix. But I kind of think of maybe the longevity aspect of it, that Pearl Jam would be the face of that. But I do think that even though, demographically speaking, Matt Taylor would be lumped by many or thought of by many as either an alternative or a grunge guy, I think he's kind of more of a classic rock guy. Like, I would bet that Matt Taylor was driving into work this morning and was just like, yeah, I was checking out some Boston, that kind of thing. He joins us now on the Schwab Men's 2-in-1 hotline, because when you're talking about the voice of the Colts and Matt Taylor, what you're talking about is the amount of Schwab in one guy that actually is that of two.
Exactly.
And joins us. Matt, I'm correct in the classic music thing, right?
Yeah, the whole 90s alternative, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Nirvana, even the early 2000s, like with the punk rock stuff, which should have been like right in my wheelhouse, because that's, I was 16, 17 years old when that stuff was going on, like Blink 182
Yep.
and Lit. It never did anything for me. I was just always stuck in a time machine with CCR and the band and Marshall Tucker and Leonard Skinner. And
Love it.
I was the 16-year-old kid in 2001, Jake, that, no one wanted to ride in my car because I had the weird old man music, for sure.
All right, fair enough. Okay, I'm going to get right to this Colts question, okay? We know now that Alec Pierce is being activated from and we call it here, out of sensitivity to men of my age. We do not say physically unable to perform, rather on the
Agreed.
shelf. But that said, Matt, if they had started him on that list, he is obligated to miss 4 games. Is it possible that Alec Pierce is still not necessarily ready to go, but they simply had to take the gamble here of, you know what? If he's not able to go until week 4, at least then we're getting him for 1 instead of 0 of those first 4 games. So therefore, we can't automatically jump to conclusion about the immediacy of availability. Safe or unsafe assumption?
It's definitely within the realm of possibility, but you heard Shane Steichen on Tuesday of this week when he was asked about Alec. He said he's close. He feels really good. He's in a really good spot. And, it's one thing to say that, but it's another thing to have like the body language that Shane had when he was saying it or while he was saying it. And so, we'll find out more today based on, I don't know if he's going to talk this afternoon to the media, just considering the circumstances, but he's going to be out there, and you're going to see, what he's physically doing or not doing. So we'll have more context clues to what you're alluding to later on today. But I've got a hunch that, he's still got 2+ weeks to go to get ready for the regular season and to get up to speed. And that's a pun fully intended, because that's why the Colts brought him in here and brought him back with that lucrative free agent contract. Is he's got that special talent with the speed and just the way he plays the game, his body type to stretch the field, get those 50-50 balls, and just really put a lot of stress on the defense, because it widens the defense and it lengthens the defense. That helps the running game. That helps the rest of the passing game underneath Pierce when he's just that threat to clear out things for the intermediate part of the passing game. So yeah, I get what you're saying. It's not out of bounds, I don't think. But everything that we've seen and heard from Pierce was this is right in line with the timeline they set back in March when he had the procedure. And it's good news that he's going to be back on the practice field today for the first time since, last December before he had the procedure and before last year ended.
Our conversation with Matt Taylor, by the way, the voice of the Colts, brought to you by Shelby Materials. Matt, when with this news about Alec Pierce, I guess if there is, and I've been talking about all day, with each thing, seemingly there's like always a yin and a yang, right? So good news, Alec Pierce back. I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill here, but we have seen in this town with two marquee players the precedent of when one has a lower calf or leg snafu that it can morph into more just based on the way the body, without you even realizing it, is overcompensatory or begins moving in a different direction, and that can lead to further complication. I say all that only because Josh Downs is apparently dealing with a little bit of that, but how much of Downs in what we may see as being, oh, wow, he's being limited here, how much of it is precautionary at this point?
I think a lot of it's precautionary. I think the same thing with Tyler Warren. I think everybody sort of understands where we're at in the calendar and the urgency that the team has across the board going into the regular season. I mean, I don't know if there is such a thing as the dog days of training camp anymore, because training camp it's not as laborious as it used to be. I don't want to be like the Clint Eastwood back in my day,
Right.
the two-a-days and all that stuff. But you get what I'm saying. Like this is literally today the last practice of training camp. Roster cuts have to be made on Sunday, and then we get into that awkward time of the calendar now, but those 10 or 11 days or so before or between the end of the preseason and the regular season. So Tyler Warren's kind of the same bubble wrap mindset this week. I mean, I saw Tyler get banged up or kind of strain that groin the other day. I just got a hunch, and this is just me talking. I don't want to represent the Colts when I say this, so I don't want to be out of bounds with it. But I just got a hunch, considering how good Tyler Warren is and how tough that he is. More importantly, if he would have had that injury in a regular season game, a week or so ago when he tweaked that hamstring, I think he would have been able to go back in the game. But the Colts are doing the right thing right now, knowing that we got to get some of our most indispensable players, and I think Josh Downs and Tyler Warren fall into that category. We got to get these guys just ready and available for week one, just considering how important it is for us to get off to a good start. And the teams that we're going to play right away are all pretty good. And we've got the sense of urgency going into the season, right? Haven't made the playoffs since 2020. So yeah, I think Downs is in that category. I think Warren's in that category. And then for sure, certainly Charvarius Ward is in that category too. He said yesterday, when Ward spoke yesterday, it reminded me of what Pierce said about his ankle injury in the offseason, alluding to what he dealt with last year with the ankle. He just used the word nagging. It was just prevalent all year long, couldn't shake it. It just became harder and harder to get ready for games and to be available for Sunday. And that's what I heard from Charvarius Ward yesterday. Like, he's got this back, and it's not going to heal itself overnight. And he's one of the most indispensable players the Colts have in the secondary because of just the potential of the secondary with the personnel they have, and Ward factors into that very heavily. And we haven't even started playing regular season games yet, right? He hasn't compounded that injury with other wear and tear that you get through the 17-game grueling marathon. So I definitely think the Colts are being cautious with a lot of players going into the season, knowing that they just flat out need these guys from a front line perspective. Like, they need as many starters healthy available at the beginning of the year, trying to get off to that great start and duplicate what they did last year.
Matt Taylor is my guest here, courtesy of Shelby Materials. He's on the Swabman's 2-in-1 hotline. Matt, now that you've had a chance, and I know that we still have one preseason game left, but we got a pretty good idea through camp, through practices, through all of it, just, what you have in the roster, okay? Which position room, if you were to walk into the position rooms, which one do you feel has the least amount of drop-off between the best player in that room at a position and the guy that would be deemed like the last player in that room at the position? Which one actually has the most consistency from top to bottom?
Good question. Um, I think safety's in a really good spot, because Hunter Woller's back and he's healthy. AJ Halsey, I think, is going to be the starter. But you got Jonathan Owens back there. You got Trey Washington. Daniel Scott's a good player. I think there's a separation between starters and experience versus backups and potential and skill sets. But I don't think it's, I don't think you're falling off a cliff there. I think wide receiver, you're in a good spot right now, believe it or not. Especially now with Keenan Allen being here. And I don't know what the Colts are going to do. It's going to be tough to round out that position, especially if you keep four tight ends with Will Mallory, right? Will Mallory's got the thumb. And so that makes the potential of keeping him a little bit more complicated going forward into the regular season. So if you keep four tight ends plus Mallory, or including Mallory, I should say, do you have the luxury of keeping six receivers? And I just feel real bad. Like if Nick Westbrook, Akine, or Laquan Treadwell, if either of those guys or both of those guys don't make the team, that's tough, man, because they both had good camps and they're both great teammates and they're just bought in Colt players, if you will. So that's just going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. That's just going to be a tough draw potentially to see how that shakes out, Sunday at 6 o'clock. Linebacker is pretty deep, even though the Colts right now don't have, two every down players. They've got a lot of different
Matt,
skill
I
sets.
feel like the linebacker position is one that, and hear me out here because I don't mean to sound this in a negative standpoint. I don't know that you have anybody that's a 9 or 10 at linebacker, but everybody is a 6 or a 7. Like you have some stability there and some interchangeability because you don't have anybody that you're clearly like, man, they're only there because they had to sign somebody. But
That's
yet you
right.
don't have anybody that's like, man, automatic Pro Bowler here, even though, you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I think those guys would probably agree with you on that because, outside of Akeem Davis Gaither, not a lot of guys at that linebacker position have started games and have a ton of experience.
Well,
Carlisle's.
and I get the impression, Matt, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I think this is where you're going with that. Davis Gaither, would you agree with this? And Jalen Carlisle is a guy that they've been patient on, right? And they've seen something in him, right? And he's getting to get opportunity here. But Akeem is one that, to me, was signed as kind of a nice, solid veteran insurance policy. But that insurance policy may be cashed in here right off the top until other guys are up to speed and ready to go. And then he goes back to being your depth. Am I right in that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I don't want to take anything away from his. He started 13 games last year for the Cardinals, right? So I don't want to downplay that at all. But he does have familiarity within this defense at a prior stop with Lou Anarumo in Cincinnati. So not a lot of other guys can say that. But I don't think it's going to take C.J. Allen very long. I don't think it's going to take Bryce Betcher very long either. I think those are two, maybe going forward, I think those are going to be like two cornerstone Colts. I think the Colts hit twice on both of those guys in the draft. And then Carlisle is probably, well, not probably, he is your best cover linebacker in the middle of the field with that athleticism as a former safety. So they're intentionally trying not to put too much on all of those guys' plate, kind of have them be fit into niche roles early on in the season and then just see where the playing time goes and where the skill sets evolve at that spot. So I don't know if that's like you look at the depth chart right now, Jake, and you say, okay, guy A and guy B are out there to start the season or to start the game. That's not written in stone at all because they're going to probably play a lot of different guys early in the season just to see where their strengths are as they put a game plan together.
Okay, lastly, Matt, and this is the really important stuff here, right? This is the kind of hard-hitting stuff you love about this show. So I'm looking at the Colts road schedule, okay? The road schedule. We got, and I think I'm correct in this. They go to Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Jacksonville, Philly, Cleveland, and then obviously Tennessee and Houston, right? Am I right in that?
That sounds right.
Okay. Of those, you now, as the voice of the Colts, you have been to most of these. Kansas City's a little different because it's a night game, so you've got some travel variety there that can become tricky. in your expertise, based upon proximity of stadium to the areas where one would be staying to enjoy a dinner or an evening and soaking in the local culture and feel, the overall hospitality of fans, the stadium itself and the amenities from what you're able to see and whether or not it's a cool stadium, and just the overall vibe. If somebody was thinking right now, this is the year where my buddy and I or my wife and I or whatever, we're going to do a road game for the Colts, what's the one that people might be surprised by that you would say, you know what, that actually would be a decent trip to go take? Because all told, I think everything factors in towards it being a good weekend.
Well, I don't know. I'm not an expert on the bar and restaurant scene around the stadium, but I think the good news is the stadium is not too far away from proximity of downtown, and that's Cleveland. And
Okay.
it just feels like it's like the closest thing on the Colts schedule this year to like a college football tailgate feel, right? You got the big parking lot, and Kansas City's like that too. Right, but Kansas City's all parking lot, and it's in the middle of nowhere. It's not connected to a city, so you can't really get the urban feel to it. You know, if you can't really walk from your hotel in
Right,
theory to
right.
the stadium. Maybe you can in Cleveland, depending on where you are staying. But those people are nuts. It's a great fan base, and that game. I don't know if you've got the schedule pulled up in front of you. I don't, but that game's like in mid-December.
January
So
3rd.
Oh, January.
Yeah.
Never mind. So it's definitely going to be cold, and I think that's. I can't remember the last like true like freezing cold regular season game we've had.
Good point, yeah.
It's been a long time. That game is definitely going to fit the bill no matter the circumstance. And so it's I mean if you want the true like John Facenda, Lambeau Field, frozen tundra type atmosphere. That's going to be it. I have no idea where Cleveland's going to be in terms of playoff implications. At that point, you have no idea what to expect out of them even going into the season. But it's going to be fun because the fan base is great. The stadium
is
is
a great
good.
fan base. I mean,
it's right there on the water. I mean, it's just a good time.
Yeah, it's a great fan base. There's no question. And to be honest with you, I actually think, Matt, that Cleveland, now the flats in the area that were big 30 years ago are not there anymore, but it is a very proud city. It's a city that does have some cool stuff downtown, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's there as well. And that fan base, you got to give that fan base credit, man. They've been through a lot, and they're still there, and their own misery is kind of what makes it fun. But, all right, Shelby Materials is the presenter for Matt Taylor in our conversations each week. Always appreciate it, man, and we look forward to hearing the call, of course, this weekend with Detroit, and then it gets real after that, even though the job is real this weekend. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Jake. Always good to be with you.
All right, Matt Taylor joining us on the program. The Alec Pierce news, we can get into that a little bit. And we do have show house cleaning items to get to. Eddie and I discussed this last night. We actually did discuss, once again, Eddie's getting in this real bad habit of calling me on his way home from the other job. How you doing? What's going on? And I'm like, look, it's 11:45 in the evening. It's noon to me, granted, but let's not get too comfortable with this. But nonetheless, we did have a discussion last night about something we need to get into today, and I'll tell you what it is next.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You know, I used to think to myself about bands. Oh, man, you know, this band's overrated, or this band's overhyped, or this band's terrible. But as I've gotten older, and in particular, as I have developed taste for some bands that just like every single song, I love the sound of it. I love, you know, all of it. And other people are like, yeah, that's okay. You know, I realize it's unfair to say anything in an absolute. So I can't say the Eagles are the most overrated band of all time. That's unfair because clearly the vast majority of people are extremely enthusiastic about them. I would simply say, as you were playing the Eagles right there, that is one band amongst the Giants, and they're a giant for certain, that I just don't get. I just, it's sleepy to me. Whenever I hear it, I just think, I feel like I'm in the back of my mom's car going to the dentist's office. I don't know. Maybe it's just based on the era in which it came out. But Eddie, we need to begin, or continue, I should say, the round out of our fantasy league, correct?
Correct.
Our fantasy league draft will be 1 week from, did we determine 1 week from Tuesday?
That is correct, yes.
1 week from Tuesday at the Chicago's Pizza in Greenwood from, I believe we're going to start around 6.
Draft will be at 6, yeah.
And we invite everybody to come down. It'd be a great chance to just see everybody, say hi, enjoy the fabulous pizza from Chicago's Pizza. That's probably
Or
the
the
biggest
salad
perk of it
bar
all.
if you just want to hang out, you're eating, healthy.
That's right.
And you don't want pizza, the salad bar is there.
And
What the
with
homemade ranch?
all the fixins.
That's right.
Fresh hand-rolled breadsticks, and they got it all, right? So all of that coming up. But we have how many spots remaining in our fantasy draft or fantasy league?
We gave away 2 earlier this week. We have 9 listener spots, so 7 are left for the listening audience. 7.
And here's the thing. The only requirement of being in our fantasy league is you have to be there in attendance for the draft, right?
Yes.
Because we don't want to just sit around and be like the kids in a coffee store, the dorks that are just staring at a laptop the entire time and don't talk to each other, right?
That's right.
That's not what we want to do. So have you determined how we are going to give out the 7 spots?
Not yet. I know we did like a little trivia earlier this week.
We did do a trivia. We've done the text line, right?
Yeah. That's just a lot easier, at least for me, for the purposes of giving away spots. And
The text line's easier for you
yes.
as opposed to getting to know your listener?
Yes.
Okay. Well, by all account, I want to make this as easy as possible on you, right?
Thank you.
So we won't do it just yet, but we'll do one of them over the course of today. But when we come back, there was an article that caught my eye and my ear in regards to your favorite team. And I'm going to pick the brain of Eddie inside that big melon about where he thinks your favorite team slots on said list. Next.
It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company.
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Hey, good morning to you on a good-looking Thursday. You know, I'm Jake Query, a good-looking radio host. Eddie Garrison joins the program. You hear his voice. He's a good-looking radio producer and now we know moonlighter with a second job. And he refers to it as the other job. But now we are beginning to speculate. There is some conjecture within the building that perhaps when he's at the other job, he refers to this job as exactly that. And in fact, in some sort of a weird vortex, it may just be that this is the job in which he's not moonlighting but daylighting. But we have plenty to get to. If you're just joining us on the program.
Where have you been?
Thank you, Eddie. We might begin doing this sort of a thing at the beginning of each hour where Eddie kind of gives a rundown for those of you that are just getting in the car, those of you that are just tuning in, those of you that have been stuck in a meeting and missed out on any headlines that may have taken place since we began the program that particular day. Eddie can get us up to speed on that, so to speak. Now, Eddie, with that, do you have anything that has happened over the course of today or anything that jumped out at you so far as you yourself are essentially the human AP wire?
This just went final, Jake. I don't know how close of attention you have been watching, but it was going on. It started this morning at 9 a.m. I have no idea why. You had two elimination games in the Little League World Series. Davenport, Iowa, Hamilton, Ohio on the United States side. It was the elimination game to go on to the U.S. Championship game, and Hamilton, Ohio trounces Davenport, Iowa 7-1. And then on the world side, Tokyo, Japan defeats Leon, Nicaragua 4-1. NFL news yesterday, the NFL is axing the Pro Bowl games. They will just now flat out honor 88 players and say, you are the Pro Bowlers, no more alternates, no more Shadur Sanders, no more Tyler Snoop Huntley as Pro Bowlers. So that is completely over with. And that was, by the way, that was one of the things, if you remember, Jake, the most overplayed things in sports. That was on my list, was the Pro Bowl.
It was rough.
And now we are, that was a poor job, but you hit it? There we go. Gone. NFL earlier today, Jake, announced that they have signed new deals with DraftKings and FanDuel. They are adding Fanatics Sportsbook into the rotation of sports betting partners. Only one ad per quarter is being permitted by the NFL. They will have official league data advertised during games. They'll collaborate with the NFL on what types of bets they can offer, intelligence sharing, advocacy efforts, and responsible gaming initiatives. Houston Texans tackle Braden Smith, formerly with the Colts, yesterday made the announcement that he was carted off with an injury. Today, we learned more from Adam Schefter that he is dealing with a plantar fascia injury.
Oh, boy.
They do not know how long he will be sidelined, but they do anticipate him playing at some point this season. And then the big one, this coming down the pike, 30 minutes ago?
About that, yep.
Alec Pierce is being activated off the physically unable to perform list for the Indianapolis Colts.
Okay, so with all of that, the plantar fasciitis, by the way, for those that don't know, I think most people know this by now, but I've dealt with that. And I'm going to give it in very layman terms. But the plantar fascia, if I think I'm getting that correct. Basically, you got a big tendon on the bottom of your foot, and if you are in my case, I have a huge arch in my foot. I literally can, if I stand in the right way, a Yugo can drive underneath my foot. So because I have a huge arch on my foot does not roll. It rather kind of slams when I run. And that initially, you just kind of, okay, fine, and you roll through that. But over the course of time, that slamming irritates that tendon that runs on the bottom of my foot, and that creates what's called plantar fasciitis. and it comes and goes, right? It is grueling, though. I mean, I feel for Braden Smith here because when it flares up, and when it first flares up, you kind of don't know what it is. It's like it's a lot like gout. It feels like you have almost a club foot, and it swells, and you're like, what in the world? It is awful. So the good news is it usually is not long-term debilitating, but when it flares up, it is absolutely debilitating. Now, the case of Alec Pierce, the question there becomes, and we don't know this answer. We'll find it out, obviously. But if Alec Pierce had still been on that list when the roster was announced on Sunday, then he was required to miss 4 games. This does not necessarily mean, I'm not saying that it's not the case, but the initial thought that you would have is, okay, Alec Pierce, he rode his way through training camp, and now he's good to go. Well, this doesn't mean that. It means that he is still good to go somewhere within the first. They do have confidence now that he will play within the first 4 weeks. But if you thought that it might be 3 weeks into the season before he's available, and you can't have him until game 4, you take him off that list because you're at least getting him for one of those 4 games as opposed to 0 of those 4 games. But we shall see what this means. Now, last night, I'm sitting there. I watched the latest Ted Lasso, as I mentioned earlier. I enjoyed it. I'm back in on it. I was like, okay, it found itself, and it was a really good episode. But I'm sitting there, and I couldn't sleep. I had a big dinner last night, and that was fun, and I'm going over everything that we talked about, and then Eddie called on his way home from his moonlighting gig, and I was going over all of that. Going over all of that, and then, I, again, couldn't sleep. So I look over, and it was, I don't know, 12 till 4 in the morning. And I thought, well, I'm up at this point. I might as well just start reading, okay? So, and then you get into the danger of the screen scroll that is literally like quicksand. You can't get out of it. But I found an article that was of my liking. I'm going to present it to you, Eddie, in trivia form, okay? We have oftentimes on this show talked about, and you referenced it earlier, as a matter of fact, we have a Aquariism, if you will, and I don't even know how it came about. I have no idea how this came about. But you picked up on it, and we've used it from time to time. I don't think we can use it too much. In other words, I don't think we should regularly use it because then it's like eggnog. Eggnog's fine in moderation, but you start drinking it for every meal and you're like, ugh, right? And so that's...
Do people drink eggnog outside of the holiday season for Christmas?
I don't think so.
And if so, where do you even purchase it?
I believe that's a good question. In the dairy section is where you buy it, right? But
yeah, in the milk section.
That's a good, when does it arrive? Because we make a big deal out of when the pumpkin spice arrives, but nobody mentions.
It's already here, Jake. It's already here.
I know.
I went to a coffee shop yesterday, 2 days ago, Tuesday, 2 days ago, to get me some coffee. Mm-hmm. Did not realize it was pumpkin spice release day. I was in line for 20 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Why don't they just sell it all? I mean, it's like I say with Shamrock Shakes. You got to sell it in moderation because eventually people figure out it actually just sucks. You know what I mean?
Whoa, okay. Okay.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
The same with eggnog.
Okay.
Eggnog, listen. Eggnog is every year. I'm not going to lie. Every year, early December, I get a hankering for some eggnog. Like, you know what? I like eggnog.
Do you put nutmeg on it?
Excellent question. As a kid, we used to. I think my mom would let us have one cup. I mean, obviously non-spiked, but we'd have one cup of eggnog when we watched Charlie Brown's Christmas or whatever, right? And I always enjoyed it, but literally by the time you get to the bottom of it, you're like, you know what I mean? Eggnog is a little bit like a mullet. Looks okay in the front when you're starting out, and then by the time you do the full scope of it, you're a little too thick.
Now, have you tried it with rum?
Well, I mean, obviously you can buy the pre-packaged spiked eggnog. I would assume it's a rum that's in it, right?
I don't know. I haven't had the pre-packaged.
I mean, there's probably bourbon eggnog. There's probably different variations of it, right? It's fine. But what I'm getting at is this can't be like that when we reference the Pocatello Penitentiary League. Now, those of you that are unfamiliar with the Pocatello Penitentiary League, I have no idea how this came about, or rather the Pocatello Penitentiary game. Every week there's a Pocatello Penitentiary game, and you want to know what that is. Well, what that is, as I always say, imagine there's a bunch of guys that are in prison. The warden comes in and says, good news, I'm going to let you watch an NFL game this week. We're going to put it on in the mess hall. Everybody gets to watch the NFL. Hooray! And then he says, however, it's this game. And the game is so bad that even those that are in the prison that don't usually get to watch games, and I know they get to watch them all the time, but work with me, those guys are like, yeah, I'm not even watching that. Well, I'm not even watching it. I'm going to go back to, laying around reading pamphlets on, do-it-yourself fixing the car. So along those lines, I found a list last night, and it is a list ranking the entertainment value and watchability of every team this season in the National Football League.
Really?
It is a national, if you will, opinion, granted, on the excitability, the watchability, the sexiness, the overall vibe, the sellability, the marketability of every team in the NFL. Now, would you like to guess for me, Eddie? I have the list right before me.
I didn't know if you were going to talk about the media guy who, I forget his name. He had a ranking of all the press boxes, food spread.
Okay.
On Sundays.
I could probably, the Rams would have gotten very high lists on this in St. Louis because they had a nonstop ice cream bar.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Cincinnati would have gotten low ranks because, but I've always, I've always laughed at this. The old, I don't think it was Paul Brown Stadium. I think it was still in Riverfront. Might have been Paul Brown, now that I think about it. But I was covering a Colts Bengals game, and at halftime, they opened up this thing and they had hot dogs. Literally, all they had were hot dogs and chips.
Really?
And Bill Pullian was right behind me. And I got up there, and this was not a buffet line. You had to go up and the guy put it on your plate. And I went up there, and the guy put my hot dog on the plate and put my chips on it. I kid you not. And I turned to my left to move on, like the soup Nazi in Seinfeld, like you move along to your left. And Bill Pullian was the guy behind me, and the guy literally said, "That's it, we're out of hot dogs," and lowered it right there. Pullian just standing there like, what? Now, you would have thought as the number 5 sports guy at the number 4 station in town that I would have been subservient enough, that I would have been kind enough to say to Bill Pullian, "Would you like my hot dog?" But I was like, I'm hungry. And Bill Pullian just stood there, and they were like, "We're out of hot dogs." So I would think Cincinnati was low on the list. New Orleans, not bad, except for that all they serve is etouffee and crawfish, and after a quarter, you're like, okay, can we get something else? Now, the most exciting, watchable teams in the NFL this season.
Number 1, the Rams.
They are number 2.
Ooh.
Okay, give me another one.
Number 1.
They're factoring in offensive firepower, drama, expectation, all of it, right? Now, I will read for you the synopsis of number 1. Are you ready?
Okay.
If you watched every game last season, you saw a lot of comeback wins.
Denver Broncos?
Nope. Including
Kansas City.
A catch-and-run touchdown and a barn burner. You were rewarded for your attention in tight games that you wondered how it would end. Their season may not produce as many wild swings, but they still figure to be the most explosive offense in football. Last year's season takeaway, happy defense looks poised to give up plenty of yards and points. Takeaway happy defense, I should say, which should lead to big scoreboards and more opportunities for fun offense.
Chicago Bears.
Bingo. Number 3?
Where do the Denver Broncos rank on this list?
The Denver Broncos are number 10.
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, though, is so devastated by injury usually, but they are 7.
Okay. Buffalo.
Buffalo, one would assume, would be very high on the list. Again, keep in mind that, like, the one thing about Buffalo is that Buffalo at this point, you kind of know what you're getting into, right?
Yeah, but it's still Josh Allen.
16th.
Okay. New England.
10th. Who do you think is last?
I thought you said Denver was 10.
Oh, no, hold on. Sorry, Denver is 10. You said New England?
Yes.
5.
Okay. Without question. Without question. If this list does not have this team last, then the list is trash. The Miami Dolphins. If they are not last, I have some serious questioning with whomever put this list together.
Okay. I'm going to read for you.
Can you name a Miami Dolphin outside of Devon Achane?
I'll read for you the synopsis. Are you ready? The Dolphins are the sort of bad team that can be watchable in that they have a fun playmaking quarterback in Malik Willis.
Okay.
Over the past 2 seasons, no quarterback with what minimum of 100 dropbacks has a higher explosive pass rate, 17.4%.
Okay.
Or a scramble rate, 13%, than Malik Willis. Those rates will undoubtedly fall in Miami, where he doesn't benefit from anything, including Packers head coach Matt LaFleur, but he still is a big play waiting to happen.
Okay.
Seeing young players emerge around Willis and high-octane back Devon, how do you say his last name?
Achane?
Yep.
Achane?
He moves the Achane, right? That could be a good time. But the Dolphins roster might be so poor that it outweighs the excitement of Willis ball. 31. So you still haven't guessed who 32 is.
That's ridiculous. That is preposterous. Absolutely preposterous. That is the worst team in the NFL.
Is it?
Yes.
32. You want me to read you the synopsis?
You can read it to me.
This
Miami
team was ranked
is the worst
32nd
team.
on my watchability ranking last year. Here was the blurb that I wrote. No, thank you. Well, actually, I'll watch the first start of a quarterback in Week 12 just to enjoy the pageantry of it all. But other than that, no thanks. Indeed, that quarterback started his first game in Week 12, a 24-10 win over the Raiders. And they were watchable in the end as we all enjoyed the hunt for a record. But the player that got the record is gone. So too the quarterback whose moment has passed. And there's not much reason to watch ever again. Back to the basement they go.
That could be the Cleveland Browns or it can be the Tennessee Titans.
That is the Browns of Cleveland.
Yeah.
The Titans are number 30. So the question becomes, where exactly did the Indianapolis Colts rank? Allow me to read you the synopsis. The Colts were 19th in my preseason watchability rankings a year ago. I penalized them for having Daniel Jones, who I called, quote, cautious, but an unexplosive thrower. I was wrong. Jones and the Colts were as watchable as it gets for the first 10 weeks of the season. Historically productive as an offense, 3.17 points per drive. 3.17, of course. That would have put him in the same neighborhood as the 07 Patriots with a slew of cool players. Running back Jonathan Taylor, wide receiver Alec Pierce, and tight end Tyler Warren delivering highlight reel performances. If anything, these Colts demand your time simply to see whether they can do that again. They almost certainly cannot. Even if everyone were back and healthy, regression is a cruel inevitability. But with Jones still working back from his Achilles tear and Pierce and fellow receiver Josh Downs still not practicing, it may take weeks for the Colts to even begin picking up steam. The Colts are ranked as the 19th most watchable team in the National Football League. That is actually better than I would have guessed because my fear about this Colts team, and I understand it, I know it, I love it, I appreciate it. I grew up in this town. I know what it means to not have an NFL team. I've been through it. I know what it means to have, obviously this would never be the case anymore, the local television stations have a survey to find out whether you want to see the Bears, the Bengals, or a different game that week. I know what it means to have Norman Cox at Channel 6 bragging to everybody that he drove to a McDonald's in Huber Heights, Ohio to use his black and white transistor television plugged into the cigarette lighter in his car to watch his beloved Browns because he couldn't get them here in Indianapolis, but that's what real fans do. I know all of those things. And so I understand and I know the depths of reality of not having an NFL team. But there is part of me with this particular team and just the overall vibe of the franchise. By their own credit, last year, that article is correct. They were high flying. ESPN.com, by the way, where you can read the article.
Oh, I'm looking at it, and I'm just fuming over this list.
Okay.
I'd like, please explain to me, Jake. If you are making a list of teams that you would want to watch on a Sunday and the watchability, how in the world are the Carolina Panthers, who had the worst offense among all playoff teams last year and one of the most stale and boring offenses, point blank, period, is higher than the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, Mahomes, you don't know about his health. That's why.
Well, he's going to start week 1, but even still.
Part of what I'm about to say may come into play there. I don't think it's the case with the Chiefs, but hear me out. With the Colts being 19th on this list, and it's one person's opinion, I get it, as Eddie is pointing out. But I worry about this. I genuinely worry about it. And again, I want to go back to, I know it's what I'm about to say is 100% actually in credit to the Colts. I know what it means to not even have a team here. So I'm not saying that. And I know that the standard that I'm comparing to here with what I'm about to say actually is a standard that was set by the Colts. And I know the depths, by contrast, that I don't think that they're actually in, but it's within exploration, is one that in reality we've seen before the franchise arrived here in Indy. And they've been a great partner with this city, and I see it. I see what happens on a Sunday when it's 7 o'clock at night and the Colts had a 1 o'clock game, and you go to the grocery store and 2 out of every 3 people you see are wearing the jersey of a Colt player, oftentimes of yesteryear, but sometimes of today. I see it when you drive down Capitol Avenue on a Sunday and you already start to see the traffic at 9 o'clock, even though that one happens to be a 4:30 start. I see the camaraderie, the chemistry, the civic feel and pride that only sports can create. We saw it with the Pacers, and we see it to a great extent with the Colts. But there is something that with this particular franchise right now that I've been worried about now for about 4 or 5 years. And I'm under total appreciation and respect for the fact that I'm probably wrong. I'm probably wrong. But there is something that when I say it, a lot of you, I think, are going to say, and perhaps you're going to send me a text, and you're going to say, I don't want to admit it, but you're right. I don't want to admit it. I don't want my friends to know, but I think you're right. I don't want my neighbor to know, but I think you're right. I don't want my colleague to know, but I think you're right. And I hope I'm wrong. And what I'm going to say is, in fact, I think temporary, but I think it's in the now. I think it's in the moment, and I've been feeling it for a while. And I'm worried that I'm right, but I think I am. And we will all lay on the couch together and psychoanalyze what it is next.
On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Okay, here is my incredulous inquiry. What I'm about to say is not an indictment or a permanent statement. These things are always cyclical, and they're always in flux. I wonder if you put truth serum in people, if people were laying, in this case, on our therapy couch, do you have, Eddie, sometimes if you go in and you go in for a massage or something, they play that like therapeutic. Yeah, can you play some of that in the background for just 5 or 10 seconds? Can you find something like that? Like the little, it's usually like a almost like a Chinese waterfall type music. Can you find something like that? There has to be like a YouTube thing that just says meditation, massage, background music. There has to be something like that because we need to get into
not good enough?
No, that's what you do when you're listening to the music that I'm talking about. But I need something that if we can just play for 5 seconds to allow people to go deep into their subconscious here, where we're all just going to collectively right now confess something. Okay? Do you happen to have anything like that? That's not bad. I feel like we might be at an Inya show. Who can say where the road goes? Only time. Doesn't it sound like that, kind of? Do you want me to get into the sail away, something like that? So, now that you've relaxed, now you can lower the music down now, Eddie, because I'm going to hit people with this question.
Oh, that was so bad.
Who can say where the road goes? I'm a baritone. It's hard for me to hit that octave. I worry that we are in a state right now where the Colts are boring. And you, as Colts fans, and I'm glad that you do, and it is important for us that you do, and I'm appreciative, so I'm not poo-pooing it. But I wonder how many of you invest emotionally, financially, your time, and your resources into the Colts out of a sense of a combination of obligation and nostalgia. Because overall, the games themselves and the atmosphere relative to what we have seen within this franchise are stale. And I don't mean don't go to the game. I don't mean it that way. But it feels like Daniel Jones is a really good player. I think Daniel Jones is a great story. Seemingly a really good dude. Doesn't have much of an ego. A great comeback story from being in New York where they took his best player, traded him, and then just dispatched him and wrote him off. And he played really well last year. And then he got hurt. And he started to regress a little bit. And he was like in this zone, but it was wonderful. And I think it's a great story. And I really want him. I really like him. I do. I'm a fan of Daniel Jones. I like him. I don't know him personally. I think watching him play, he was really fun to watch. And I think Shane Steichen is a little bit of an offensive, like, mad scientist. And it works well with Jones. And Jonathan Taylor, at any point, can break off a breathtaking sail away, sail away, sail away, that kind of a run. And Tyler Warren is an old school smash mouth, Jeremy Shockey, knock you over, stare at you for a second, keep running, level tight end. And defensively, Sauce Gardner, we didn't see a lot of him, but I think there's a lot of people in the league that would love to have him. I think there are a lot of things to like about the Colts. I just think right now for whatever reason, even though all of those things individually do have the potential to be something here, I worry that there are a lot of people, and we've gone through it with every franchise here. I mean, the Pacers hit a lull there where it was like, oh my gosh, they're boring. And then boom, Halliburton gets here and they make that trade and they just shake it up, and Sabonis Turner and going with like, we're going to win like it's 1998. They did away with it, and then boom, energy. And the Colts, I mean, obviously we've gone the gold standard. I mean, the high-flying offense in Manning and Wayne, and then T.Y. Hilton behind the defense, and Jonathan Taylor's big run against New England, and the octaves going through the roof, and, all of it. It's been recent for sure that they have been, and there's no reason to believe that they won't be this year. But maybe it was the injury. I don't know what it was, but I just get the feeling maybe it's the hour practice at Grand Park, and now knowing that that's not going to be a possibility to go out there and watch anymore moving forward. I just wonder if there is not a deep part of your subconscious that is aware of the fact that part of why you're going to the games is because you know that there's the potential for it to uncork and get you back to that spot. But at the same time, you're not going into it necessarily because you are assured it's going to happen right now. And that you're just like, yeah, they're just kind of there. I mean, they're 19th, and it's a national list, and so you don't read too much into that. Okay? And can you go back to that music real quick, Eddie? Do you happen to have that? Because somebody just said to me, and it's totally true. This is literally like I went to Ireland, and when you go to Ireland, you go through the Irish Music Hall of Fame, and they talk way too much about Thin Lizzy, but they get into Sinead O'Connor a little bit, they get into U2, but they talk about Enya, and they have what you can do there, what's called the Enya experience. And this is a little like that. If you pot up the music here, okay? And then if you hear me, who can say where the road goes? Literally, Eddie, we might be onto something here. You've got that second hustle. You got that moonlighting job. We might have one where we can just start going to, you play that, and I'll just sit up on a little stage with a microphone. We'll call it the Enya experience. And I can do the different, she has more than one hit, right? She has the one where it sounds like she's almost in Swahili.
People are feeling bad for Boo if Boo has to endure this.
Huh?
People feel bad for Boo if Boo has to listen to this.
Eddie, I'm giving right here. For this is basically like when you're at the mall and they got the Chick-fil-A folk that just hand out the chicken on the toothpick, and they're giving you out for free what you would pay for gladly. I'm giving out little samples here of the Enya experience that I provide. Okay? If I get into the sail away, and then I get into that language she starts singing, you're going to start seeing lines out here along 10th Street. Do you know, by the way, have we checked with the YouTube folk? Because Dykton got in trouble the other day for playing music too long on the YouTube.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, we got some email. So, like, you're okay for now, but don't do this again. They pulled over, they let him go with a warning.
Oh, okay.
That could happen because they're going, copyrights and whatnot, they're going to say, you're playing Enya. Well, no, it's not really Enya. It's the guy that does our show. He went to a thing once, and they had the Enya experience, and he's replicating it. No, that we're pretty sure that's Enya. It sounds just like her, does it not? You know that song, that Sail Away song? It's actually called like Oranco Flow or some weird whatever. And then she sings it. I took Swahili in college, so I know Swahili, and she sings a little of Swahili. It's like, Bana Miki Bana Fiki na 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 sail away.
I think we have reached a new level of off the beaten path and off the rails.
No. Off the beaten path leads you to wonder where the road goes. Okay? Or in this case, who can say where the road goes? I come from a long
Where are we going here?
I come from a long list pattern of musicians. My dad was a singer. My sisters are excellent singers. My niece is on scholarship for music. I just have tried to be more humble about it and pursued other avenues of taking advantage of the microphone. But this is a whole nother area again, you probably didn't know this about me, Eddie. You don't necessarily understand the fanaticism that's created when I get into my Inya experience. But this is a new thing that perhaps we could do, right?
I don't think you need to be talking about your Inya experience with me like that.
The guys in the hallway are looking at me and they're shrugging their shoulders.
Which guys?
Hiblin's walking around. Matt Hiblin's walking around and he's upset because I'm doing my Inya.
Yeah.
What? Huh?
You're doing what?
My Inya. It's the Inya experience.
Okay.
But you're the one that's all fit to be tied about this list. You don't agree with the list in terms of how it's ranked by the NFL watchability of these franchises. Right?
It's absolutely it's ridiculous.
Again, I want to go back to it. The Colts do have the potential, I think, to be, offensively speaking, pretty loaded. And they can be very watchable for certain. But a big part of that is about being healthy, and that includes one guy that we do have good news about that we will refresh and tell you what it means next.
This is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I mean, honestly, If you closed your eyes, you'd think you just set the clock back 8 minutes ago, right? I mean, honestly, like I don't know what I mean. You're staring at the floor laughing,
Yes.
and you said you walked out of here, and people in the hallways were laughing, right?
They were confused as to why.
I don't understand what the big deal is here.
You I can't even talk.
I don't see what the issue is. I asked for a little therapeutic music because we were all going to sit down and collectively open up our souls to one another. And you played the backtracks of an India song, and my, moonlighting gig that I've contemplated at times as a male India cover lounge singer, I just decided to hum a few bars, and then you suddenly started laughing like a school kid. And now you got the case of the yips.
It was just so bad.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so bad.
Eddie. And I want to get into the Alec Pierce coming back, but let me just offer you a little bit of confession, okay? And I don't typically get into this kind of thing. Maybe as a younger guy, I would have been a little more vociferous about this, okay? But can you look up Enya? Like, I'm going to guess that was probably, mid-90s was her peak, somewhere in there, okay? And she's been around for a long time, but that sort of a music and my ability to instantly tap into that, back in the days of, Old Pros Table and Chumley's, and there are a lot of these places that aren't around anymore. The Jazz Kitchen was a big one. The Casbah, big one. A lot of those places on a Friday or Saturday night, it was not uncommon for me to break the ice with people by getting into that sort, just tapping into my musical skill there. And I'm not one that necessarily wants to, but I did okay. You know what I mean? Like back in the day, I did okay. And I've done okay now. And knowing where you have a hidden skill that you can break out from time to time is part of being able to tap into that sort of a thing, right?
Sure.
Look, hey, man, don't hate the player, right? Just hate the game. That's all I'm saying. Alec Pierce has been activated off the shelf list. And as we talked about earlier, that means that he is now eligible for the Colts in week number 1. Eligible. That doesn't necessarily mean that he is ready to play. But as we told you earlier, had he been on that list when the final roster cuts were made on Sunday, then they would have been obligated to keep him out for 4 games. And this would indicate, or one could maybe perhaps assume, that this means that, they may say to themselves, he's 3 weeks from ready. But they do believe that he is going to be available sometime in the first 4 games, and so therefore he is activated. If there was no chance that he was going to be able to play, then they would have kept him on that list, although all hell would have broken loose, you can imagine. But, the fact that this is good news versus bad news, no question. Now, the NFL giveth, the NFL taketh away. The other 2 areas then of concern for the Colts would be that of Josh Downs, who has a lower leg irritation. We'll call it that, a calf that's bothering him. Probably nothing. And to be fair, if he was working and practicing through this and going full bore to try to work through it, we would be screaming from the mountaintops and the top of the Salesforce Tower all the way to the top of the Crown Hill, all the way to the pyramids, all the way to the big smokestack on 37. We would be shouting from all of it, what in the world are you doing? Because we know in this town more than any other, Indianapolis tells us without question that you need to be careful with lower leg injuries because it's like in racing when we say cautions breed cautions. Lower leg injuries oftentimes breed other injuries in the calf, in the Achilles, whatever else, because of the not even realizing you're doing it, compensatory movement that you can have, and it starts waking up different muscles or tendons that have not been working in a while, And so, therefore, they're not ready for the big game. And so if they were working Josh Downs through this in that regard, we'd be saying, whoa, be cautious. But instead, they're being cautious, and we're saying, whoa, what's going on? It's unfair. But that's where things stand with Josh Downs, and I don't think it's a huge deal. And they're making sure it doesn't become a huge deal, is my point. And then the other injury is that of Charvarius Ward. And Ward talked yesterday in a question from our James Boyd about the back that is bothering him. And here is what Charvarius Ward said when asked about how he's going to kind of play through or contend with or deal with this back pain as he plays.
It's going to be something I got to deal with, something I got to maintain, something I got to manage. Definitely not going to be fixed overnight or over the next couple of weeks. I just got to maintain it throughout the whole entire season. So I expect to be ready for week one. Well, I'm 100% positive. Well, I ain't going to say that, but I expect to be ready for week one for sure.
Okay. What's interesting there is he continued to move the goalposts. You know, I'm going to have to deal with it. It's not going to get better next week. It's not going to get better in week. It's not going to get better all season. And the one area that gives you pause or hesitation with that is this is a player that is on record of saying that psychologically speaking, and I know that he dealt with, and again, the ultimate understanding and condolence to it, the loss of his daughter just before he came to Indianapolis. I'm removing that, which is a forever grieving process. But in terms of just NFL playing and the body's ability to go out and play and be available for you, there is precedent, that word again, with Charvarius Ward of having to fight through things and have it question in him whether or not this is something that he wants to do. His words, not mine. Very on record about that. And that's the one thing or the one area where then you look at it and you say, man, does that give you pause? Because now he's back in a situation where after 5 weeks, 6 weeks, if that back is still bothering him and he's able to fight through it, does it psychologically become something that we'll discuss and watch?
Hey, Jake, so a week from Tuesday, we've got our fantasy football draft. And if I asked you, are you going to be ready for that night to select your roster? This is going to be your reply.
I expect to be ready for week one. Well, I'm 100% positive. Well, I ain't going to say that, but I expect to be ready for week one for sure.
I'm not 100% positive, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm 100% positive about?
Yeah.
The Indy experience. It may be coming soon to a pub near you.
You need to be careful with how you phrase these things.
No, I mean, I get it. But I think everybody knows what Inya is, right? Now,
Are we sure?
well, you know, I mean, like I said, back in the day, Tony East mercifully joins us next.
It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company.
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Now, I got to tell you, what is a good day just turned into a great day. It's a gorgeous day outside. Good afternoon to you. My name is Jake Query, Eddie Garrison, the other voice you hear on this program. Nathaniel, don't call me Atticus Finch, just brought me in a patty of Jamaican patty from 52nd and Allisonville. Stefan and the group over there. They are, I can't even begin to describe to you how awesome they are. The only drawback to eating one is that there's just one here. They are fantastic. I mentioned this earlier on the show, but we are right now, I think when it comes to the Colts, and for that matter, the Fever, everything's about a yin and a yang, right? And yesterday started out, and I want to thank everybody that came out, everybody that made contribution, everybody that helped out with our relief efforts for the American Red Cross. For, not just throughout Noblesville and then down into Rocky Ripple and Ravenswood and, so many different areas of central Indiana that have been impacted, the state of Indiana in general, impacted by the flood. And it was kind of a heavy day, if you will, to start out. I appreciate everybody that came out to say hi, and it was great to meet everybody and be around our colleagues and all of that. But the tone of it, just the spirit of the day, while that was uplifting, the core of why we were out there was heavy, obviously. And I had a ton of stuff to do yesterday and a lot going on. And then last night, I watched the latest episode of Ted Lasso. And I realized that probably not a huge percentage of you are watching Ted Lasso or are familiar with it, but I will simply say that in the new season, I have been vocal about the fact that it felt like it hadn't really taken off yet. And then last night, everything about Ted Lasso that previously I had come to love, the simplicity, the messaging, the overall good vibe spirit, the Andy Griffith type feel to it, it all came together, at least for me, in the latest episode that I watched last night. And it was wonderful. And so the day began kind of heavy and ended like on a light note. And so much of sport that we analyze and look at is, in fact, yin and yang. You can look at everything from, well, there's the negative side of it, and then it can turn out to be positive, or, there are different spectrums by which to look through things. And one of the things that Ted Lasso does brilliantly is it takes a 40-year-old movie or a 40-year-old television show or a famous moment in pop culture, and that becomes a theme of that particular episode. And there are a number of things that relate to little subtleties that are the tip of the cap of something you've seen before. And I think sport does that a lot, where you can look at a team, at a season, at a player, and you can forecast or try to what's going to happen based on the way that you've seen things happen before. And I wonder, for example, for the Fever, if we're not seeing that. Where a year ago, and for the Pacers, it was around this time where everything kind of came together and you started to see it come to formation. Joining us now to talk about exactly that and more, he is on the Schwab Men's 2-in-1 hotline. He is, of course, with a number of different outlets. Forbes is the one that I always jump to, WTHR as well. Is it Circle City Spin? I'm saying that correct, right, Tony?
That's fine. You don't have to introduce me like this. You can just say my name.
Are you saying that you're a man that needs no introduction?
No, the opposite. It's not worth it.
Oh, really?
I don't think so.
Well, I mean, I think it's important to let people know, the various places of which your credibility stands out, which is why you're on the show, just because you have a dynamic personality in general when you talk with us. But let's begin with that, with the Fever. Am I correct in saying that, it does feel, especially coming off, and I know that they have this layoff here. I think psychologically this layoff may be at a really good time for them. But I do think from a basketball standpoint, they have hit a stride here where they've kind of weathered through a storm. What say you?
And their last one was big for that, I think, just to, you're in Chicago. It's a back-to-back. It's your 6th game in 10 days, which is a hard NBA schedule, nonetheless, WNBA, where it's at least a little bit more spaced out. And the Sky at the time were playing pretty well. They'd just beaten New York. They'd just beaten Golden State. And they handled them. They had an awesome second half. Their stars were awesome. Their role players made shots. And it's just like, they obviously lost 2 games on that road trip that they could have used to win for playoff purposes. But it's kind of emblematic to me of like recently, I would say the last 10 to 12 games, they're playing fine to good, but not even really at their peak level, I would say. And they've kind of admitted that after a lot of these games that they've been kind of, okay. Caitlin called their win over the Wings at home a B game, right? And they won by 11. I think that they feel a lot better about how they're playing right now and that they're playing good, obviously, but not even at their peak. And they're still handling their business and able to find solutions, whatever that may be, to beat good teams or to overcome tough scheduling challenges. And that is the mark of a team, to the point that you're making, is coming together and figuring out what it takes to win and not, getting dispirited when you give up an inevitable 13-point lead in every game. And, their schedule after this break is pretty challenging as they try to fight for home court in the first round. But I do think they've done a lot of really important problem solving recently. And the Pacers did that their finals year too, right before the end of that season.
Tony, I'm going to 2-part question here. Okay. When you look at the Fever offense, then realistically, to be a championship contending team on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being the most, obviously, and 1 being non-existent, the Fever need their defense to be at least a what in order to be a championship contender?
Like a 4 or a 5.
Okay.
Not high at all.
Okay. The Fever right now, defensively, are reliably night in and night out a what?
A 3. I mean, they're 11th out of 15 teams, so that's the bottom third of the league. So you're at most 33%. So 3-ish, yes. I mean, they give up consistently 100 points in a game. Have I told you my stat yet for their defense?
Do you happen to have, Tony, a stat for their defense?
Hey, great question, Jake. I'm glad you asked. So obviously what I'm about to say is also reflective of the pace of the Fever's games, but the Fever are 12-6 this season when they score 100 points in a game. So they have 6 losses when they score 100 points. The other 7 playoff teams are 45-0 when they score 100 points in a game. They have all 7 teams combined have not lost once, right? So obviously, even when the Fever score a ton, they don't always win. They lose. In fact, that's like almost half their losses are in that situation. And so all these other teams don't score as much as the Fever, of course, but their defense is much better. They're more credibly suited to win when they have a nice offensive night in a way that the Fever aren't all the time. And so that to me is very telling of what their season has been. They score a ton. They're very good, clearly, but they just need to be okay on defense. And even that's been too high of a bar sometimes.
Let me throw this at you, Tony, and tell me if you think there's any legitimacy to it. Tony East is my guest on the Swabman's 2-in-1 hotline. The Fever have very gifted offensive players. And, Michael Jordan was a very gifted offensive player, but he also had an incredible, tenacious, competitive streak about him, which made him a great defender. And he had Scottie Pippen, who was a great defender, right? Is it possible that what we're seeing are not players that don't want to play defense, not players that aren't committed to defense, but players that, because offensively, if there's one side of the basketball that you rely more on instinct and natural feel, it's offense. And so if you have gotten to this point in your career as a gifted offensive player based on your instinct and your natural feel, you naturally then carry that over into the way that you play both sides of the ball. And as a result of that, it is harder to learn defensively because your traits are that of instinct as opposed to, just overall repetitive learning of a scheme. And that's what holds them back, is they are so offensively gifted, they just have players that have never really had to buckle down and get into the brass tacks of defense.
I always think about what you're saying in terms of like a really athletic player, right? And so throughout all of high school, that was enough. Like if they mess
Right.
up on defense, they just
Correct.
run and they block the shot anyway, or they get it. That doesn't matter. They don't have to focus on technique and all this stuff. And then in college, it's like 75 in their favor, 25 against them. And then they get to the pros and like, oh crap, like everybody's like this
Right.
athleticism. This
Right.
doesn't work. This isn't an advantage anymore. And so to your point, like most people's natural gifts to that end are offensive. That's how they stand out. That's how they get to the pros, whatever. And so I thought that they haven't worked on them. It's just never been like a core part of their game. And then they get to this point where you have a ton of those players. And I'm not even saying that that's necessarily the Fever's case. Like I could tell you a 5-man lineup they have of players that I would say at some point in their career, I called them a good defender. And it's like a normal lineup, but they haven't as a team ever really put that 5 on the floor for lots of offensive reasons. But they have a lot more obvious, yes, you're right, natural offensive gifts and instinct on that end in a way that never had to be a focus for a lot of these players. And so you try to put a team around them, but that is just going to be a natural consequence of what their team is.
I mean, Tony, as I've always said, and you've heard me say this to you probably 50 times, you go to any NBA or WNBA game, either one, okay? And the player that gets in like on a two-way deal that plays 6 minutes in the game and mop-up minutes, somewhere there are two people sitting at a bar talking about the time that they dropped 47 on them in high school, and that's the greatest player they've ever seen. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean,
Gary Harris was obviously an awesome NBA player. I guarded him for 2 high school possessions. He scored 4 points. Like I had no chance.
Really?
Yeah.
And this was at what high school?
He was at HSE. I was at Zionsville.
You were at Zionsville, okay.
Yes.
And
I don't know if it wasn't a school game though.
Oh, so you were just like playing pickup ball and you guarded him twice and he scored both times?
Yep. Never guarded him again.
Okay.
I was never permitted again.
I have a buddy.
That's my only story that fits what you just described, so I had to throw it in.
My buddy
was never very good.
My buddy Dave Scott, his dad Fred Scott was a prominent insurance guy here in Indianapolis. Great dude, great dude. The late great Fred Scott. Fred proudly told the story forever about the time that he held Oscar Robertson scoreless. Fred played at Muncie Central, Oscar at Attucks, held him scoreless, and I thought, wow. I mean, I got to look up articles in the paper. And then later learned that actually tight game, Muncie Central, Attucks, Attucks was up 9 with 90 seconds to go. They went to a spread to stall it out, and Fred Scott was put in the game for the last 90 seconds and stood across from Oscar. Held him scoreless, right? Let's go.
I would probably do that too.
Of course. 50 years later, I held him scoreless. Tony, I want to get back into this, though.
Yeah.
Psychologically speaking, with everything that has, and maybe I'm speaking esoterically to just those that are kind of, around it on the inside and the audience or the fan base isn't aware. But I think most are. There's a lot of online noise surrounding the Fever. There's a lot of scrutiny of the Fever that other teams don't get because of Caitlin Clark. There's good that comes with that. There's bad that comes with that. I do think that it has become at times, not all the time, at times very mentally trying and taxing for the organization. I do think that. And I think they've kind of gotten out of that a little bit. It seems as though that's died down some. Winning helps. But it is my feeling that aside from the rhythm of the X's and O's and the momentum thereof, that from a psychological standpoint, a break is going to be good for them. You agree or disagree?
I 1,000,000% agree. I mean, this sounds silly, but like, a road trip, it's just like you and your team, even that is helpful, right? And they just had that. And as much as everybody wants to say it's just social media, like everyone alive who uses social media, it creeps into your real life to some extent. It creeps in your brain. You can't help it. You talk about it to someone else. One comment gets under your skin. Just one, it's inevitable. And so sometimes it comes and goes in terms of how, what the discourse is, how impactful it can be on the team. But in that way, one, you're right that when they're winning, it's a lot more muted and more focus comes on why they're winning and what's going well and what their playoffs can be about. But then, yes, 2 is a break will naturally help. There's nothing to talk about in a good way. They don't have to be online. They can spend time with their family. They can, come together as a team and not have to deal with any sort of public obligations in any way. All they have to do is watch their 2 stars play for Team USA a couple times and, that's it. And so, yes, I think that will be good. It's like, it's longer than the All-Star break. Like this is an actual break. The All-Star break was 5 days. I don't know how long they'll send players home, if they even will. I'm sure some will stay in market, but it's long enough that if you wanted to, as a fever player, you could go home, see your parents and see your siblings and hang out for 4 or 5 days and then come back and, right before Labor Day, be ready to go and do your individual prep and all that. So that's very nice. It's very refreshing. I think physically, of course, everybody will say that, but I mean, for you, I've covered, this is my second World Cup break and there's been an Olympic break in there. Every time the players say the same thing, like the physical part was nice, but the mental part was way better, just to step away for a little bit. And, it's strange that it's so late in the season, but every team will get that refresh. It's just a mental break is even better for a team that we're always asking about their mentality and how they're dealing with the online presence and the noise. I think it will extra help them. Yes, I agree.
Did Gary Harris dunk on you, or just like a
No.
pull-up jumper went around you? Like
No.
what happened exactly?
Scored very easily at the rim, and then I fouled him.
Okay. So wait, you fouled him on the second possession,
Yes.
but he still scored.
He got 2 free throws.
Okay. Fair enough.
Way to make him earn it.
That's right. Tony.
Oh, no.
Yesterday, Benedict Mathurin, it was right around this time yesterday when we found out that Benedict Mathurin would be signing with the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah.
I like Ben Mathurin. I think most people here like Ben Mathurin. I still will forever wake up in a cold sweat from time to time thinking about the game in which he had the meltdown that might have cost the Pacers a championship, but I digress. Is he now destined to be the proverbial 2025 guy?
Oh, your favorite phrase. That's possible. I mean, look at his contract, and you can see how the league feels about. Honestly, yesterday was very telling in general because Kuminga is a similar player at a different position, but these guys that are good scorers, not like amazing. His efficiency is good, but not incredible. Good scorers who are not that great passers and do not do that much defensive play creation with steals or blocks. Like, he's not bad at that stuff, but that's not what he's not adding a ton of value in that way. If you're just doing the scoring, don't get me wrong, points are good. There'll be nights when you're really good. Like, teams don't really value that. They put a mid-tier value on what that skill has and how much it actually helps them win games. And so he'll play for the Pelicans. That's great. He'll have they have a lot of guards and wings, but he'll have a role on that team for sure. But yes, I think he's in a spot where he's got to show skills outside of what he's known to be good at. He's clearly great at those things. He clearly was great at those things with the Pacers, but I mean, he had very little trade value, and the team that traded for him didn't even keep him on a 2-year cheapo deal, right? So I feel like I'm crapping on the guy. I don't mean that. I think Ben Mathurin's quite good. I'm surprised he got paid this little. It's just what his skill set fits the box you're saying.
I didn't
2 years, 2 years, $16 million with a player option. Almost the exact same contract as Kelly Oubre, but with a player option.
Okay, which begs the question. And I don't know, Tony. I mean, I'm walking into a hallway here where the door is about to potentially slam right in my face because I don't know this. There might be some legality to it.
Uh-oh.
Could Indiana have re-signed him, or was that discussed at all? Because based on that number and that figure, was there any discussion of just getting the band back together?
I mean, instead of Oubre, technically they could have, but no, I don't think that was a real consideration. I mean, between all this, I mean, they said they didn't think they could afford him during last season. There was always these fit challenges they talked about. No, I don't think that was a consideration for them, but they would have had to have him instead of Oubre, or of course, if they didn't make the trade, they could have had both, but then they wouldn't have Zubac. So like pick
well,
two
that's
of
what I
those
mean.
guys.
Like, they're his, I recall, I'm going on the way back here.
Yep.
But I remember when they traded, I think I'm correct in this. They traded Mark Jackson to Denver for Jalen Rose, and then very quickly thereafter realized they still needed Mark Jackson, and then traded like Eddie Johnson and like Vincent Askew or somebody to Denver and got Jackson back. They quickly realized, what,
Yes.
and so then they kind of got their cake and ate it too. Would that have been? Does it say something about Ben Mathurin, who I think everybody likes as a person? I'm not saying that, but does it say something that here is a guy that was a regular part of a team that went to the finals and won them a finals game? Truth be told,
Yeah.
Probably lost them
Game
one.
3, he was amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
So could they have had their cake and ate it? Hey, we'll send Zubac or Mathurin to get Zubac, and then get Mathurin right back, and boom, all we lose is the pick.
Yeah, once the league year flipped, that was allowed. But he also, the challenge with all that is he was a restricted free agent. So at first the Clippers could have matched, and then they signed a bunch of players and kind of buried him, and he wouldn't have had minutes on their team. But by that point, the Pacers had already done their business, and so the timing never quite worked out. But yes, legally, once the league year flipped, that could have technically been done.
I did see, by the way. So, did you go to the big softball game?
I did. Yes.
Did you keep a scorebook like Dustin Dopirak?
That was awesome. That was so cool. No, I did not.
Yeah, he kept an action. You know what I say? You go to any Major League Baseball game, and they're kind of like the white rhino. They're harder to find in the wild. But to this day still, and I'm not calling out Dustin Dopirak here, but you go to any Major League game, Tony, this is actually an American fact. It's a historical fact. And it is an endangered species. But you go to any Major League game, and you are usually somewhere within your section, within range, of a guy wearing shorts that are uncomfortably too short on him with dress socks and New Balance shoes, keeping a score while wearing a hat of one of the teams playing.
Dustin only had the scorebook part of that, to his credit. I did laugh. Frustrated is a bridge too far, but the teams did not bat in the same order every time through the order, and it made Dustin very frustrated with his scorebook to keep bouncing around.
Wow, yeah, that's okay. Now,
tough.
But were you on a serious note? And I know it's a charity softball game, Jake. It's not an NBA game. But I was a little surprised, Tony, that the Colts had their players participating in terms of running the base paths and doing things like Daniel Jones. I maybe I'm just like 900 years old, but that surprised me. And also, did you assess in any way the movement of Tyrese Halliburton?
Yeah, Chad Buchanan was there, their GM, and I wish I could have somehow seen his face when Tyrese Halliburton got caught in a pickle and was running back and forth between third base and home, changing directions on his Achilles quite often.
Yes.
Like, is he grimacing the entire time? Like, Daniel Jones ran out a grounder. At one point, the Ursays were there. I'm like, are these people freaking out that they're
honestly,
dead
right?
sprinting?
I mean, I'm not trying to make something out of nothing here, but it's a little surprising, is it not?
I was, especially with Jones, because his is so recent. Ty is at least 14 months removed and has, I've seen him sprint a few times. I've never seen Daniel Jones. Yeah, it was the other play that I wondered about. This is not related to what you're asking me. Is the Ursay said, hey, Tyrese is up to bat. They said, hey, we'll donate $100,000 if you get on base. And he hits a grounder right towards Daniel Jones that he could probably have reached if he sprinted for it. And I said, if he fields that grounder, what does he do? Does he throw it to first and get him out with his owner staring at him with the donation?
Can you imagine
in
if Daniel Jones is forced then to lunge in some awkward position, land awkwardly, and throw out Halliburton, who's sprinting his way and trips over first?
Does he intentionally just throw it over the first baseman? What happens there? Also of note, you didn't ask me this either. Riley Leonard was really good. He could play. He turned a double play. He was playing well enough that I Googled if he had played baseball growing up, and he actually got a D1 basketball offer from St. Mary's, but not a baseball kid. He was quite good.
I'd like for everybody to know, for the record, okay? I want to make sure we need a clarification sounder, Eddie. We have a breaking news sounder. We have a bad analogy sounder. We need a clarification sounder. The clarification that I want to make sure that everybody is aware that Tony East right then, when he just said Riley Leonard looks really good, was talking about softball, not the preseason for the Colts, right?
Oh, yes, correct. I have not seen a Colts preseason game, nor will I ever watch a Colts preseason game.
He's not terrible, but it's there for the taking, and he has yet to take it. That's the easiest way to say it.
I'm glad that I've never heard the bad analogy sounder. That means I'm doing a good job talking.
Eddie, would you like to play the bad analogy sounder for Tony East, please?
Who is the most frequent recipient of this? You?
When I do a bad analogy, Eddie plays that. I have no idea why he picked that one. All I know is this. That band Fish, there's a fella that gets up there with like a 1960s vacuum cleaner of some sort, and he plays that as if it's an instrument, and these people at Fish that haven't figured out yet that the music sucks, they all go crazy over it, and somehow or another, Eddie turned that into the bad analogy sounder. Is that pretty much the synopsis there, Eddie?
Yep.
Okay. Tony, what's upcoming for you here? You've got a little bit of time off in terms of fever coverage, so what will you be working on?
Yeah, I'll have two fever stories probably soonish about their playoff push and their break, and then I'll take a break when they do. But I talked to Jay Huff about his offseason. I know that sounds silly, but this is the first time Jay Huff has ever been on the same team in consecutive seasons and not been a free agent in his 6-year career. So I'm curious how that will shape his summer, and a couple other guys I talked to at the softball game. So some fun stuff coming for both teams.
Okay, we will be looking for all of it. Tony, appreciate the time as always.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, Tony East joining us on the program here on a Thursday. It is a gorgeous day outside. Do you know who shut the blinds in here?
I think it was the morning crew because they were shut when I also arrived.
I may open up. You know who sings a lot about the sun and the rising of the sun.
Now,
right?
what was the sounder you said you needed me to come up with?
The clarification sounder. But that's not clear. We need one that lets people know that you're about to be what was just said is going to be clarified, or there's going to be more to the story. I know what it could be. That's not bad. Do we have that fella that used to do the qualified? Okay, that's not bad. But then we need that guy that used to do the things, and he'd say, "But wait, there's more." Because you think that you're hearing something, but wait, there's more. And then you find out there's actually more information to clarify what it was that you just heard. Riley Leonard looked outstanding. I couldn't believe how good Riley Leonard looked. Pause. But wait, there's more. And then you find out in the softball game. Oh, okay. Braden Smith is dealing with plantar fasciitis and is going to miss some time. Pause.
But wait, there's more.
Okay, not. Now, what's that guy from? The infomercial.
That's from Scary Movie.
Okay, but like Braden Smith has plantar fasciitis. His future is uncertain in the immediacy. Pause. But wait, there's more. To clarify, that's Braden Smith of the Houston Texans, not the current Pacer. You see what I'm saying? So, but the pause is also very important. It's like when Borat learned to tell a joke. Pause.
Are you talking about Billy Mays?
I would assume it's Billy Mays. I'm also thinking maybe even more that. Is Billy Mays have one? He has to have, but wait, there's more. It used to be like every infomercial. The Ginsu knives. You're going to buy the Ginsu knives? You think you're going to buy they sharpen, they even cut julienne fries. And then you're going to buy them. Oh, act now and order now at 800-999-KNIVES, 800-999 for the Ginsu knives. But wait, there's more. If you buy now, you also get included this incredible Lhasa Apso dog grooming kit. Whatever, right? The Ginsu knives was a big one. There was a time, Eddie, where you could get on your television, and if you had a telephone, you could buy anything. Anything. And if you were having an overnight get-together with your buddies in the 8th grade, you could set up an account and do COD to a fake address and call in these shows and order something in mass quantity and then watch and see if they announce that it just sold out live on television and then laugh and giggle uncontrollably with your buddies. I'm not saying I know anybody that did that or was that, mischievous or devious, but back in the day, you could buy anything on television. Probably still can to an extent, but now it's all online, right? But anytime that you wanted to buy something, they would make sure that you knew that there was more. Eddie's actively. Do you realize what your algorithms are going to do now that you're looking for Ginsu knives commercials?
Yeah. Well, good thing I'm on the Fan YouTube, not mine.
Great. So the Fan one will be going haywire, right?
I'm just kidding. I'm on mine. I can't find it.
Is there a concern at one position for the Colts that is not wide receiver? Because Alec Pierce earlier today, we found out, is going to be in the mix. But wait, there's more. And it's the other side of it with the Colts that we'll explain next.
and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Just allow yourself a relaxing journey to the serene. Now, you don't want to admit it, Eddie, but doesn't it just feel like you can faintly hear this in the overhead while you're sitting back in the beaches of Hawaii enjoying a fresh outdoor breakfast in the morning with this playing? Doesn't it feel that way?
No.
Does this remind you of the calming, surprisingly accurate nature of which I sang it just an hour ago on this program?
Oh, would you like me to pull that up real quick? You want me to pull?
You got to play the music with it, though. I mean, the acapella doesn't work as well.
I can't do that.
What do you mean?
I can't do that.
Oh, I can hum the music, and then you can play me singing it.
Oh, goodness.
Dun, 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 dun. And go ahead and you let me know when you're going to play.
I'm ready.
Dun, 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 who can say where the road goes? Dun, dun, only time. Oh, I mean, did you just re-rack the bounce back music there? Because it sounds almost exactly the same.
I wish I could say I did, but no.
Hey, good afternoon. It's Indy, and you're listening to The Mix, where we mix together the finest of hits. There's a mix of feeling when it comes to the Colts and their health status because Alec Pierce, we now know, in the mix, per se, he has been elevated off of the physically unable to perform list. And let me assure you right now, that is a list no man wants to be on. But because he has been activated, as we have been saying all day, that means that he now is, had he not been activated, easier way to say it, had he not been activated, then he would have been obligated to miss the first 4 games of the year. That is now not going to be the case. He is eligible to play in those 4 games clearly. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be week 1. Does not mean that Alec Pierce is ready week 1. But one would assume that they know he's going to be available sometime in the first 4 weeks, even if it was a game. If the Colts had gone and taken Alec Pierce to, well, one of those places, the foot spa places. They got those all around town, right? The foot spas. Now, they used to be a great bargain. You'd go in and it was like, and you'd sit there and it was like, they have them in like every airport. And it would be $45, and for an hour they do your calves and your feet. And now those places are all like $95. And I don't mean the Robert Kraft ones. I'm talking the legitimate ones like in Castleton and whatever else. But even if Alec Pierce had just gone to one of those joints and they called the Colts and said, you know what? We're a little bit uncertain here. I think they might have kept him there because they could have used the roster spot elsewhere, right? But in this case, this would lead one to imagine that somebody they went to told them he is at minimum going to be ready in 3 weeks. Because if they think that there's a chance, even if they said not until 3 weeks, even if they'd said to the Colts, look, he's going to be ready, but he ain't going to be ready for another 3 weeks here. The Colts would have said, but week 4? Yeah, no, he should be ready for week 4. Then let's go with it. And we'll you know what I mean? We have him there, and then we'll go with it after that. So there's no, I think, and he may well be ready in week 1. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying don't automatically jump to the conclusion that this means, in fact, he is going without impediment. He is probably still going to have to, and the other thing as well, you have the reality that he's going to have to get into actual playing speed and, shape and speed, right? And I don't know how long that takes. I mean, I don't know how much he's been working out in terms of other things, whether it be the exercise bike, or I'm sure there are areas that he could keep himself in some sort of a condition without putting pressure and stress on the foot itself. These are people and organizations and businesses whose entire livelihoods are based on figuring those things out. Josh Downs is interesting. Josh Downs is interesting because of the fact that it is that lower leg. And if Josh Downs is not at 100% with that leg, Eddie, I'll ask you, do you believe, based on the precedent, not just Alec Pierce, the precedent is there for the Colts, the tangible evidence of what happens? Because let's go back to a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts went in, they were 8-2, right? They were 7-1, and then they were 8-2, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's right. And it's like, holy cow, this offense is scoring at this record pace, and they're getting out in front in games, and they've got all kinds of weapons. And Daniel Jones is hitting literally every note the right way, like me doing Inya. And everything was going perfectly. They went into that Pittsburgh game, and Pittsburgh, who had been stagnant defensively, threw everything at the Colts and just said, we are just going to basically double blitz the whole time and stack the box, and they made life miserable for him. But what we later found out was that, in fact, he was dealing with a lower leg issue. He's got a lower leg. We're not going to get into that a lot. He's got a lower leg. Okay. And we knew that he was dealing with some sort of a lower leg issue and that he was very compromised. And the next game that they played, and I can't remember, did they go from Pittsburgh to Germany to take on Atlanta and then came back? I'd have to look at their schedule.
Where were the Chiefs and all that? Was the Chiefs after?
I think look this up. I think it went Kansas City. No, they didn't lose 2 in a row, right? Was it Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh, Atlanta, bye week, Kansas City.
Okay, and then Jacksonville?
Houston, Jacksonville,
okay.
Seattle, San Fran, Jacksonville, Houston.
So towards the end in those games, a couple of those games, the Kansas City game comes to mind for certain. We started analyzing, like, look, he can't plant the right way when he's rolling out. And you could start to see that there were areas where he was favoring or compromising on the leg. And it was in question there. And then it came out like he has a lower leg injury. So we knew he had this lower leg injury. They're going into Jacksonville. It's a big game. I remember because we were doing our Franciscan Health Fair at Gugman House over on the west side, and we're all sitting there, and I was talking to Nigel, and we look up, and I'm like, it's over. He just got hurt. And then that's when it was like the movie The Sixth Sense, where then you look back on it and you go, now it all makes sense. He had been favoring that leg, whether or not that was a factor in the Pittsburgh game or it started in the Pittsburgh game. The reality is that he was dealing with that lower leg injury and he was compromising on it and putting stress, undue stress, unforeseen stress on his Achilles that then caused for the rupture or the tear. I shouldn't say rupture. I'm not a doctor. The tear. And so that, I think, even though it is absolutely insane and it would be incredibly irresponsible of me journalistically, medically, and intellectually to say that Josh Downs is dealing with the same level of issue. Josh Downs literally might have woken up in the middle of the night with a Charlie horse and they're like, look, he's got a cramp in his calf and so we're holding him out. But because this is a franchise that just went through it with Daniel Jones and a city that just went through it with Tyrese Halliburton, both of which were precipitated by the conversation of a lower leg injury. Because both of those things are in play, therefore it gives you an understanding and a patience with any player that that's going to be the case, to say, you know what, take your time and get it up to speed, pardon the pun, and then we'll go from there. That's where things stand with Downs. And then you have the one that we've been talking about all day and all day yesterday and all day the day before probably, and that's the situation with Charvarius Mooney-Ward and the uncertainty of his back, the nuisance and the pain in his back. And when he says, you know, I'm 100% that I'm going to play. I mean, I'm pretty certain. I mean, I think I will. I mean, he backtracked right there, and then it was, I'm going to be ready, and like I'll have the pain, but like I'll deal with it in week 1, and then I might have it like a couple of months, and then I may have it the whole season. He kept hedging back, and that leads to a lot of question mark and uncertainty about a player that, I mean, somebody sent it to me earlier that said, is there really anybody realistically that thinks that Mooney-Ward is going to play the entire season? And I don't mean that he's going to retire. I mean, is there really anybody that thinks that he is going to be on the field and available for 16 games? It is an area where they have depth. But you let Kenny Moore go. You banked on Justin Wally coming in as your nickel. Now what if all of a sudden Justin Wally's got to be not your nickel, but he's going to have to play moments at corner? Or Jalen Jones does, who clearly doesn't kind of fit in with the Anarumo style. You got to move some guys around. They do have depth, but depth then becomes simply sustainable when you have to dip into it. Your savings account becomes just an account when you got to spend a lot of your savings. And I'm not saying they're there yet, but it is certainly worth keeping an eye on. You know what else, by the way? J&B is going to join us coming up in just a couple of minutes. We'll find out what he's got going for his program that is underway at 3 o'clock today. That, of course, the crossover brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. Love-HVAC.com is the website, 317-353-2141. We will have that conversation with him and probably look back on yesterday's event at Kroger and everybody coming together for that. If you are coming together with friends, family, watching the game, whatever it might be, Surfside, the very best for you. Surfside, look for the can with the sunset stripes, iced tea and vodka, lemonade and vodka right there within the same can. You can do a mix and match. You can do different flavoring. You can simply buy one of them. But wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages, Surfside is the very best because with no carbonation, it is so incredibly smooth to enjoy and just 100 calories, 2 grams of sugar. Surfside, look for it wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Please be 21 and please consume responsibly.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Wrapping things up here and getting set for J&V's program later today. We are cooling things down. He is warming them up. Of course, the very best when you're doing either of those in your home is Love Heating and Air. Love-HVAC.com. 317-353-2141 is the telephone number. John, I got to tell you, yesterday, boy, by the time I was done, it was actually, speaking of heating up, it was doing exactly that outside. But the circumstance itself, we hope that we don't have to do when it comes to helping out and, helping out with the Red Cross. That means that there are people in need. But it was awesome in a couple of areas. Number one, just to see everybody coming out. You and I talked about that and getting a chance to meet and see different listeners, both old and new. But also just seeing our buddy Ray, for example, walking around, man, he, dressed in his suit and talking with Rafael Sanchez to people from all communities of this area. And I tried to get him to come on the show for 3 hours, and every time I turned around, he had to talk to somebody differently, right? Ray from Telemundo.
Yeah, it was an incredible event yesterday. It really was. And you're right. You don't want to have to go through those circumstances, but when it happens and we have that call to action, it's awesome to see the team come together in the fashion in which we did. Now, do you know how many years did you work with Rafael Sanchez?
Boy, 7 to 10 probably, somewhere in there.
Did you know that he's my age?
I did know that he was a few years older than I. He went to Franklin College. I did know that, yes.
Yeah. So he's been around here absolutely forever. He's a staple. He's among the hierarchy of those all-time greats around here.
I was working with him at the time that he was doing an undercover story, and some fella that he bombarded chased him on foot from Monument Circle all the way down past Market Square Arena, and then finally grabbed him and on camera said, "You are a parasite." And so Tim Bragg and I called Rafael Sanchez a parasite for like 10 years.
A parasite.
It was awesome. You are a parasite. John, what's on the big program coming up later today?
Mike Chappell will talk about Alec Pierce, I'm sure, and a lot of the things I was listening to you on my way back from Bloomington right here. So we'll talk about a lot of that and get you set for a weekend, preseason game number 3. And not too far down the road, Jake, things are going to get real. Taven Jackson, again, I was with Trace Jackson Davis the other night. His little brother is going to be the starter for North Texas and against IU in game number 1. A lot of interesting stuff, and it's just about ready to all come together, Jake.
It is crazy how we're right on the cusp of it. It will not be long before you and I are doing our favorite thing, which is, of course, we are privileged to do it and to watch the games, but also just to soak in the environment of everybody around us in the press box.
Yeah, I'm very excited about sitting next to Kent Sterling. Actually, I am. I'm incredibly excited.
This is why I always you make me sit to your right every time, right? Right.
Well, he's so unique and organic. I mean, it is bound to rub off on us.
Okay, I like it. It is always fun up there. There is no question about it, but it'll be here before
honestly, and I just like the cat on the bag. When we reference unique and organic, that is a very famous, maybe even infamous Kent Sterling quote, unique and organic.
That's correct. That was said about you, I think, right?
I'm sure. I was probably not in really glowing terms, Jake, right? So probably not.
Yeah, you weren't either, I think, was the
probably
case.
Unique in a really crappy way.
All right, John. We'll be listening 3:00, man. Appreciate it as always.
See you, buddy boy.
All right, JP joining us on the program. The
Buddy
crossover
boy.
brought to you by the Love Heating Air. John probably was listening because he liked my Inya.
He's already off the Zoom, so.
Do you like Inya though, Eddie? Not my rendition of it, but do you like Inya in general?
No.
Were you familiar with the work of Inya?
Yes.
Okay. None of the songs at all? Football Friday tomorrow. Kyle Neddenrip's going to join us. Also, we'll talk a little college football. And I want to get in next week. I'm excited about this. I think we might have the commissioner of the Horizon League. They have a new commissioner, but she's got a law degree and a law background. And I think can offer some really good perspective in dumbing it down for people like me where we are in this wild world of NCAA eligibility and court rulings and overhearings and all of that. So we may do that next week as well. But it's a Football Friday tomorrow. We look forward to it. And I thank you today for listening to Query and Company.